happy Saturday, or whenever it is that you get this message. I'm Scott Smith. I'm having my morning coffee, and this is a Saturday service where I'm looking at the events of the week, doing a little bit of storytelling, and playing with some cards to give a little bit of a message for the week that's sort of outside of the box of, the freight train of social media at the moment. Not necessarily that that's negative, but I do find that there is a lot of reaction in the world right now. So I'm creating videos to encourage connection by disconnecting from the frantic energy. The moon is in Cancer. I'm carrying a nice piece of Chevron Amethyst. I got that from Zuzu's Healing Arts in Massachusetts. I'll put a link for that in the notes. And I'm continuing to work with the Hive Tarot. That's Christopher Hughes and Nadia Turner. And I'm loving this deck as a great portal or key to put me into the right space. So I pulled 2 cards today. They're both interesting. One is for the now and one is for 6 months ago. I learned that from a friend who probably learned it from a friend in putting tarot together, but I'll get to that. I really want to say that I have noticed personally that by not spending so much time on social media, by disconnecting from the electronic connection to other people and focusing more on the physical connection, the tangible connections I have with those I really love and cherish, and focusing on what can be done, on just the true connection to nature, to myself, and to each other has been amazing for me. It doesn't erase any issues I might be, focused on. A lot of people think that, wrongly think that when we meditate and we do anything which, puts our nervous center back into alignment, that without all of these intense emotions, that the things that we're really involved with are no longer valid. And that's not true. In fact, we become more connected to them. We're just less emotionally volatile or hooked into them. We want to watch those hooks, right? If you're a healer or you've gone to anybody to remove attachments or hooks or any of those sorts of things, that happens too with issues. That happens with relationships, and it happens with insubstantial things. When we're so fused with electronic media, these are different little points where we can all sort of become connected, and we need to clear those out, right? So the easiest way to do that is what my friend Laura would call a social media detox. And I used to think that was the craziest thing in the world until I became so involved in social media that I realized, wow, this is a real thing. This is something that we need to do. So I just want to encourage that, just to remember, spend less time connecting digitally and more time connecting physically. And then the people that you connect with, what are you connecting around? What's is the focus on the vision, or is the focus on something that's a little bit more destructive for you, or a lot more destructive for you? To really think about that and adjust yourself for your own health and well-being. So I'm back home. You can see I'm back in my little altar room. I've got my lights with me, and I'm sending you a little spiraled message for the week. We start with the devil. I like that this card depicts them in a very business-like suit with all the empty hives behind them and the dark skies. This one is a symbol of, in a lot of ways for me, this resonated with the message that I was having this week, which had a lot to do with consumerism, capitalism, but more specifically, not to use those kind of tag words, right? More specifically, when we've sort of sold our soul to the business of something and we've forgotten the connection to everyone else, that these just become commodities, right? And you just become a business person negotiating the commodity there. There's no more nature here. There's no more connection here. It's there, but we've forgotten it. We can get very involved with our ideas, and there is a way in which our ideas can become like the toxic reflection of a true spiritual experience, because we become so mental and fixated about our ideas that we forget the connection. kind of what I was talking about on the first, which is repeated in this card in its definition. Because it's a major arcana card, it really asks us to look at things that might be chaining us to situations or locking us in where there is no other alternative. The only thing is this, right? It's like embargo, right? It must be this. There's no other way. End of story. Absolute. And really, that's putting ourselves in a corner, right? I'm not saying that that type of negotiation or that type of situation, is never called for, but I think it's extreme, right? And it's not always called for. And I think that we forget when we become really binary, right? We become so binary that we're polarized between these right and wrongs that we lose everything in between. It just becomes a wasteland, right? Like nothing else matters except these two poles of the things. And it must be the way that I want it. And the other side of that is wrong, period. The end. This is a reminder of that. This wasteland behind this devil figure is a very strong image of that for me. And the ideological fears or control mechanisms we use to justify, that the production of that field behind him. Just something to think about, to continue to think about for the week. The very interesting thing is, and I love this card, I just really love this person in the card sitting there. This is the Seven of Jars, which has that water element to it. And I love the sevens. They ask us to think. They ask us to reflect. They ask us to consider. They have that Jupiter connection. They tell us that there is time for expansion, which says there was a period of time about 6 months ago where either we came upon a good idea and we really started to sort of flesh that out or do something with it, or whatever we were doing was disrupted, right? And we were asked to consider something else. You can see here she is with all her things in her book, but yet she's looking out the window as if something else is happening there. So there might have been the consideration that other things are happening. Kind of has that Sagittarius influence to it for me, like where it's like, you get a Sagittarius and like, let's do this thing. Oh, but wait, we can also do this thing. And then we can also do this thing. And in the end, we're going to be doing this. And then 2 years down the road, we're going to be doing that. And you're like, but we're just working on these 7 jars at the moment, honey. Can we just come back to this for a second? I like that idea, but let's come back to this. So it says there's a period of expansion, or there was a time when a lot of ideas opened up. I know for myself that that's true. That October, November area, there was a lot going on, and I had a lot to consider. And so I sort of reshuffled the deck for myself, even though it was a holiday. I did my 13 Days of Yule in the Temple of Witchcraft. I sort of opened that up to see what that would look like for me in the coming months. And it says that where we are now might be the product of, or might be influenced by those thoughts from about 6 months ago. And so to consider maybe the result of that is where you're at right now, and how did that really turn out? And if it looks like what this card is depicting, right, you have to consider how that's also your making, right? But the lesson of the devil is always that these chains are imaginal. They're the things that you make up. They're things that you connect yourself to, but may not have any actual tangible connections that are locking you in place. In that Pamela Coleman Smith, the Rider-Waite deck, you can see the devil card with the 2 nude figures and these very large chains around their necks, which they can just easily go boop and pop off, right? And then walk away from the situation. But it's their belief in the fear of that, or it's their belief in the fixed idea of it, because it's Saturn, Capricorn, devil, right? Those energies all are sort of related to each other. And it's that fixedness of Capricorn that can say like, it can only be this way. The idea is only this. And it's that kind of stubbornness of Capricorn, it's like, it's got your goat, right? The devil can remind us of that thing. I noticed this in conversations this week, and fixed ideas. And I just really tried to soften myself, or to shift subjects or gears, or focus on something else. So I worked on a lot of art. I had really great conversations with clients, tried to see things from multiple perspectives, because when I see something that says stubbornness, I think about that 7 energy that might be coming up from my past as a reminder to say, don't be so fixed. Expand your vision a little bit more. Remember what it was like to have a little bit more emotional fluidity and mental flow, to have that sort of expansiveness that allowed you to have a little elbow room. Remember, we started these talks with the Joan Halifax decks, A Moment and a Breath, which was space. Space kept on coming up again and again and again, creating space. When we do that, we really have the space to think and feel for what's happening for ourselves. This doesn't take away from what's happening anywhere else. And if it does, if someone makes it into a demand that it is taking away from them for you to make some time for yourselves, really want you to consider that. That's my talk for the week. My little under 15-minute video. That is, don't get too fixed or stubborn. Really look at the influences and see what you've tied yourself to. Remember that expansiveness that might have brought you a little bit more mental fluidity, a little bit more emotional flow, so that you could be in the right place, making the right decisions at the right time for yourself, your health, your wealth, your well-being. You could show up for others in the same way. Make time for you, connect with nature. I hope you enjoyed this little talk. I'm Scott K. Smith. You can find me at starandstonellc.com or patreon.com/Scott K. Smith. That's SCOTT, the letter K, SMITH. I let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be.